Coming up on Tech News Today, is the Microsoft Surface Pro half dead already? Also, Facebook and Zynga are kind of taking a break. And bendable phones are coming. Should you roll one up and smoke one? Next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
Live from Santa Monica, California, this is Tech News Today for Friday, November 30th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Pond5, the world's stock media marketplace. If you're a media maker looking for video, photos, illustrations, music, sound effects, After Effects templates, or 3D models, check out Pond5. And for an exclusive 50 free stock media downloads, go to pond5.com/TNT. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT11. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Darren Kitchen.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show that keeps you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each day with the top 10 stories of the day in the news. Cloudflare, the internet uptime insurer, posted an interesting analysis of the Syrian internet outage today. The Assad government in Syria claims terrorists cut a cable causing the outage. Cloudflare points out there are 4 cables connecting Syria to the internet, 3 of which are underground, and their analysts show an orderly disappearance of service consistent with router configuration updates.
The iPhone 5 and the iPad mini are both coming to China, at least next month. Apple announced this morning that the Wi-Fi versions of the iPad mini and the 4th-gen Retina iPad will be available in China on Friday, December 7th, and the iPhone 5 on Friday, December 14th. Chinese consumers will be able to get all 3 gadgets through the Apple online store, via select Apple resellers, and by reservation from Apple retail stores.
Microsoft released details about its Surface Pro tablet. There are 2 models, a 64GB version at $899, a 128GB model at $999. The Surface Pro runs Windows 8 Pro using an Intel Core i5 processor. If you're wondering what that processor is going to do to battery life, according to the Surface Pro Twitter account, the Surface Pro will get half the life as the Surface RT. Microsoft didn't announce a specific launch date, but the tablet is expected in January.
The unlocked version of the iPhone is now available in the United States, starting for $649 for the 64GB version. Add $100 for a 32GB and $200 for 64GB versions. Also, a Merrill Lynch analyst believes that T-Mobile might announce the iPhone coming to their USA network next week. Kevin Fitchard of GigaOM threw cold water on that report, though, arguing T-Mobile's network just isn't ready yet. Unlocked iPhones can be used on the T-Mobile network, but only at edge speeds.
Apple's new iMacs are available to order in the United States, Canada, and across Europe. The 21.5-inch models estimate shipping in 1 to 3 days, so you get them quick. The 27-inch models are also available to order, but aren't expected to arrive until just before Christmas, with an estimated shipping date of between 2 to 3 weeks.
Zynga just filed a document with the SEC outlining new terms to its agreement with Facebook. According to the filing, any standard Zynga game page that uses Facebook data will now be governed by Facebook's standard terms of service, which means games on Zynga.com are no longer forced to use Facebook ad units and credits. Zynga's right to cross-promote its non-Facebook games using Facebook data and email addresses is now limited by Facebook's standard terms.
Dell's got a new laptop, and it's running Ubuntu. Dell dabbled with selling Linux laptops with its Project Sputnik project, and this is the result. You can get the Dell XPS 13 laptop, Developer Edition, with Ubuntu pre-installed. For specs, you're looking at a 13-inch screen, 8 gigabytes of RAM, Intel Core i7 processor, and it starts at $1,450. This XPS 13 costs $250 more than other XPS 13 models that run Windows 8, but it's $50 less than one running Windows 7.
There's a new Humble bundle out, and it's called the Humble THQ Bundle because they're all THQ games. You'll get to name your own price starting at $6 for titles like Darksiders, Company of Heroes, Metro 2033, and Saint Row the Third. The bundle also includes some game soundtracks, and you'll get codes so that you can redeem on Steam. That's a great deal, and you can have a portion of the price you pay go to charity.
Cloud price war. Woo! Big data. Amazon and Google both announced steep price cuts to their cloud storage services today. Amazon's Simple Storage, or S3 service, dropped 24 to 28%, while Google's cloud storage has dropped more than 30% in the past week. Google already cut prices by 20% earlier this week and then followed up with an additional 10% cut today to match Amazon. The lower prices for both services take effect December 1st.
Redbox Instant by Verizon is currently being tested in private beta, although GigaHome has discovered a help section with specific details about the service that happens to be publicly available on the web. Assuming nothing changes, subscriptions look like they'll start at $6 per month, but the service will have a smaller library than Netflix, at least to start. Redbox Instant will initially be available on the web via Android and iOS devices, the Xbox 360, and select Samsung TVs and Blu-ray players. Customers will be able to register up to 5 devices to access the service.
This episode of Tech News Today being brought to you by Pond 5. I'm down here in Southern California. I was out at the Arsenal Lounge. Sarah, I believe you're familiar with that place. It used to be a hangout.
It used to be my Friday happy hour spot. Yes, indeed, Tom. I had some times there.
Oh, you did. But I noticed some people talking about making movies, making TV shows. There are a lot of people doing that down here, obviously. I mean, it's almost cliche to talk about it. But I wanted to go over and tell them about Pond 5 because I actually overheard people talking about like needing good stock video and how hard it is to find good stuff. I didn't. Maybe I should have. I thought it would be kind of weird if I just wandered over and did an ad for Pond 5. But Pond 5 is in fact a great stock media marketplace. If you need photos or music tracks or sound effects or videos, they have vector illustrations. They have custom motion templates, 3D models. If you're into doing actually good-looking video, you need this stuff to fill in the gaps. You can't afford to go get all these shots yourself. So go check it out. POND5.com. You can make your creative project, whatever it is, whether it's a print piece or whether it's a video, you can make it look a lot better by getting these royalty-free images. They're at a decent price. You can download them instantly, and you can use them legally in virtually any media production at the best prices anywhere. It's great for developers, designers, film and video makers. All your audio and video asset needs are there. And you can sell stuff too. If you're out there and you do happen to get that great shot, maybe out in some wildlife, or you did spring for a helicopter shot or something, you can take your creative media and upload it to Pond 5. And Pond 5 gives you control over the pricing. That's unheard of. They pay out 50% royalties for each and every sale. It's a higher payout than other stock photo marketplaces. So go check them out. And if you do, you can go to pond5.com/TNT and get 50 free stock media downloads. That's pond5.com/TNT. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, folks. Well, little view to the future here with me down here. This obviously isn't the setup I'll have eventually when I move down to LA. But how does it feel? You guys all right?
I'm dealing. I'm hanging on by a thread. No, it's okay.
I think it's very Becky Worley inspired, I got to say. It's the kitchen behind you. Well, I've seen it.
Well, actually, the kitchen's above.
I think that's all a little strange. I'm not quite sure why we're stacking hosts. But, it's just okay. Whatever.
It's the story. All right, well, let's get into the news and start talking about Microsoft Surface Pro. I've been excited about that because I liked using the Surface RT, but the one thing I wanted was the multitasking, the full features that are available in actual Windows 8. So I've been looking forward to the Microsoft Surface Pro with Windows 8. Tell me what I'm going to get. How much is it going to cost? What's the deal, Iyaz?
All right, so Microsoft telling details yesterday. There's a whole bunch of it. Like I said in the news views, 2 models with different storage capacities. 64 gigabytes will cost you $900. 128 will cost you $1,000. It's got a Core i5 processor. The clock speed's not specified. 10.6-inch screen with a 1920 by 1080 resolution. It's got a digitizer and ink support. It actually comes with a Surface Pen. I don't believe the RT does. It comes with a full-size USB 3.0 port, mini display port, weighs less than 2 pounds. And again, Microsoft didn't give an actual date for a release. Battery life, and this didn't come with that original release. It came from Surface's Twitter account saying that it's going to have half the battery life of the Surface RT. That means around 4 to 5 hours. RT gets 8 to 10. I guess with this information finally out there, Tom, what do you think about the specs and the price? Is it too much for a tablet? Is it right for a premium one? Is this really like a notebook computer? What's the pricing like with this?
The pricing doesn't make me fall down and pass out like some people seem to imply. I thought it was expensive, but not ridiculously expensive. It's sort of where I expected it to be, especially because you are getting a more powerful one. That the battery life thing is the one thing that really troubles me. Now, I know it's still 4 hours, but on a tablet, I'm used to the tablet being the thing I can count on, that I don't have to worry about.
Tablet's like 10 hours. It should, I mean, you want to get as close to 10 hours as possible. That's the beautiful thing about tablets, right? 4 hours on a tablet, that's not even going to get you through a flight.
And the Surface Pro does not come with any touch covers or type covers. And as we know about the Surface, it doesn't have like a keyboard dock that has an extra battery. That's a different form factor that other OEMs are using. Darren, what do you think of the pricing? Do you think it's just too much for it? Or is this what Microsoft wants? So they're like, look, it's a premium product. We got to charge a premium price to set the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely premium pricing. And I don't think anybody that's, been holding out for this is really going to gawk that much at it, because they've been holding out with this kind of expectation. And looking at those specs, it seems kind of clear that Microsoft's like, hey, this is, total geek factor device here.
I was looking at the pricing of this, and like you guys are saying, with the battery life, it's going to be a hard sell, especially since this is the device that runs Windows 8. So it actually has the full-on desktop applications. It has the full desktop, more applications just in Windows Store. And then you have another slight compromise. That was the weird thing with RT, is it had all these compromises. Like, there's a desktop, and you get Office, but you don't get other applications. There's no Office pre-installed in this either on the Pro. So it seems like there's no uncompromised experience when it comes to Microsoft's products right now.
Yeah,
well,
and that's why a lot of people are just saying, forget it, this thing is dead on arrival. And I would like to say it's half dead, because if it had twice the battery life, I think it'd be more acceptable. Go ahead, Darren.
No, I was just saying it's all about what you can do with it. So if you wanted a tablet half as expensive, you could go out today and get yourself an iPad and have even higher resolution screen and all that stuff. But the fact that this is running a regular x86 Core i5, that's huge. And I feel like we're only really going to know how cool this is once this gets into the hands of some hackers that can do some cool stuff with it, with that architecture.
Maybe they should just bundle it with Half-Life.
It's not a horrible idea, to be honest.
Battery life cut in half again.
Now, if you're looking for something cheaper, you might want to look at Zynga Stock today, because the news of what their relationship is like with Facebook is not being taken well by the stock market. Apparently, right?
No. In fact, after the news came out that Zynga and Facebook they're not breaking up. They're getting a little bit more space from each other. Zynga's stock price went down, and after hours trading almost 13%. Has leveled out a small bit since then, but here are the details. I mentioned in the news views that Zynga has filed some updated documents with the SEC, and this pretty much gives both Zynga and Facebook a little more breathing room as far as the two companies' commitments to each other goes. So the updated terms are as such. Any standard Zynga game page using Facebook data will now be governed by Facebook's standard terms of service. That pretty much means Zynga is now treated like another game developer rather than some sort of a special relationship within Facebook. Games on Zynga.com platform are no longer obligated to use Facebook ad units and credits. Zynga can cross-promote non-Facebook games using Facebook data and email addresses, but it's limited to Facebook standard terms, again, acting a little bit more like the other game developers that Facebook is working with. Facebook also no longer has exclusive rights to Zynga's social game launches. They used to. Zynga games launched on Facebook doesn't mean that Zynga games aren't going to have a huge presence when they're new. Obviously, Facebook is still a big place for Zynga, but they no longer are required to give, a certain amount of time.
They're friends without benefits.
To Facebook platform, exactly. And back in 2010, Facebook and Zynga, after some back and forth, had entered into a 5-year agreement that had to do with a dual commitment and Facebook credits and Zynga games. But then again, Zynga.com was launched, and that was pretty obviously Zynga's way of saying, we can't rely on Facebook. Things are changing over there too much. And the social nature of games is sort of at Facebook's whim to decide how strong we are on Facebook. So we have to make sure that we've got a platform somewhere else. So this was sort of bound to happen, I think. Obviously, the Zynga.com is an effort to decrease dependence on Facebook. And on the Facebook side of things, even as recently as Facebook's last earnings call, Mark Zuckerberg said, listen, our payments to Zynga are dropping about 20% annually. Obviously, Facebook is in the business of making as much money as possible and making its shareholders happy. But Facebook is also saying, listen, we're not paying Zynga as much as we used to, and that's a good thing. We don't have too much dominance with one game developer. It's more just going to be one of our many game developers that we'll work with in the future. And one other little thing about all of this is in the terms of this SEC filing. Facebook will no longer be prohibited from developing its own games. So a bunch of people were saying, wait a second, does this have to do with Facebook wanting to make its own games and just not having Zynga be too close of a partner? Facebook tells All Things D, a spokesperson said, we are not in the business of building games, and we have no plans to do so. We're focused on being the platform where games and apps are built. So this might just be a little legalese in there.
No way.
What do you mean, Darren?
I have it on good authority that they're working on social networkville, where you get to grow your network out slowly and then change your policies over time to co-opt your users' privacy. It's going to happen.
I'm surprised that's not actually a Zynga game. That probably should be, or a Facebook game.
Well, whether or not Facebook is thinking about making its own games, I don't know, somewhere in the future. I could see in the near term, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start competing with its own developers that it ends up getting revenue from. Well,
I'm thinking for Zynga, this is a good idea. They need to somehow get maybe some competitive rates when it comes to the exclusive opening the game. If Google Plus had it first, or some other site did, or Zynga.com, and it drove traffic that way, good for them in the long term, because they're struggling to figure out what's the future for them. But Facebook, I could see them picking up their own game developer, just like they did with Instagram, or just picking up applications that were built or that work around Facebook. You can just go, Facebook can just pick off another competitor, integrate them in any which way, and then also say, yeah, we also want other developers to come in, but we also want to have strong first-party games, just like Nintendo has, just like Microsoft has. You just have really strong first-party games that maybe aren't running into such legal difficulties like Zynga does every now and then when they rip off all kinds of great games.
Well, Zynga,
yeah, I think Facebook's going to take an approach that YouTube is taking, where they might dabble a little bit in helping people more broadly create content for their platform. But I don't think it would be wise for them to actually get into the business of creating games, creating apps directly for people, because I don't know. Microsoft's doing it with the Surface tablet, right? They're trying to prompt competition, but I don't think it would work there. And I think they need to foster more creation more widely and not have all their eggs in the Zynga basket. So this makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think there is a somebody in chat, I think it was you Beatmaster, said, isn't there just still the problem with the public perception feeling like Zynga and Facebook are interlinked? I think this is a step, yet one more step that Zynga and Facebook both hope will start to break down those feelings. They want to be two different entities. Neither wants to be dependent on the other. I do think from Facebook's perspective, Zynga does carry, as you said, Iyaz, sometimes Zynga gets they get some bad press. And they also have, there's a certain, I think, perception. People say, oh, Zynga games like Farmville, ugh, I hate that stuff. I always block it on Facebook. Facebook doesn't want to be the kind of social network with all these millions of users where they go, the games, those are sort of silly, stupid games. Zynga can obviously innovate and make all sorts of new games going forward. But Facebook doesn't want people to think of games on Facebook as exclusively Zynga games.
All right, let's move on to Oh, go ahead, Darren.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just wondering if it meant that Farmville and Cityville could finally come to Google Plus, because when Zynga did come to the Google Plus platform, it was just like poker.
Yeah, no, you might see them branch out a little more because they're less tied to Facebook. Good point. BBC has one of these trends pieces out, which I usually don't really give a whole lot of attention to, because they're usually things we already know a lot about. But they're talking about flexible phones, and this is something that I just have wanted for a long time. I want to be able to roll up my phone and put it wherever it's most convenient. Samsung, LG, Philips, Sharp, Sony, and Nokia all working on bendable phones, and they all think they're pretty close. Some of them are working on a technology based on your e-ink reader. If you had the first Kindle, in fact, if you have any of the e-ink Kindles, that screen is actually bendable. You could roll that screen up. What keeps the Kindle stiff is that you have to have all those components underneath. You have to have all that circuitry. So they need to keep everything solid. LG Displays is mass producing fully flexible e-ink screens with the idea of partnering with people to make bendable devices. Samsung is going the other way. They're using OLED for foldable, rollable, wearable phones, they say. Wearable phones, that's interesting. And Professor Andrea Ferrari from Cambridge University is working on bendable displays using graphene. Now, the part that makes graphene useful here is that you can combine an OLED bendable screen, like the one Samsung's working with a flexible battery and flexible circuitry created with graphene. So here's the thing I want to know. Sarah Lane, do you want a bendable phone?
Sure
Are you excited?
do, Tom.
Yeah? See?
Oh,
exactly.
yeah. I want to roll it up like a little fruit roll up and look what I can do with my bendable. No, I think this is. I think this is cool just because, sort of. I don't know. I was thinking of
kid sometimes.
Well, yeah, I know. I think this is like technology that's cool because it's possible. That's sort of how I feel about this. I absolutely want to see this happen, and I'd love to see it happen as early as next year. That's just awesome.
Iyaz, which of these technologies that we were listening to here sound like the best bet? If you had to bet on one of these horses, which one would you bet on?
Well, I mean, OLED is troublesome because I know that it had trouble consistently lighting up, so that would die off. And the fact that you'd be bending it all the time, I don't know if that's going to help or decrease the lifespan of that technology. I've always liked e-ink when it comes to just power consumption. So if I'm going to have one roll-up screen, maybe I still have a traditional candy bar style phone that has an LCD, and then you could roll out a second screen with it so I can show like a map or something. That doesn't decrease battery life. I think that might be the way to go, because as long as these things are flexible, you still have to have a housing for it. You still have to have a battery for it. And if that's not flexible, you're still going to have this chunky piece. So it might as well be a proper phone.
Graphene makes a bendable battery. That's what the guy at Cambridge is working on.
Well, then that would, if you can combine that in one, I would imagine though, once you start putting those layers together, it gets less flexible as you would do it. But I would go with not OLED at this time.
Darren, I know you like physical keyboards or large screens. Is this appealing to you?
Well, I don't know if I'd want a fruit roll-up phone per se, but I do like the idea of having a phone that would have some give. I mean, I could go at this all day and it's not going to do that. And so it would be nice if like maybe your phone was like a good pair of jeans where you just kind of have to, wear it in, and eventually it would just have the curvature of your butt or something.
Distressed phones will be sold at J. Crew.
But like, I think though of like sometimes when this happens in technology and it comes out really not that great. Like remember those keyboards? Where it's like, oh wow, you can roll up this keyboard and take it anywhere. Have you ever tried to type on one of those?
Yeah, it's like typing on a sandwich bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping we see a few prototypes of this at CES. Obviously, we're not going to see anything out and about very soon, but they do think they might have some of the first models by the end of 2013. So that's exciting. Even probably end up being vaporware, but who knows?
And Gumby could be the perfect spokesperson for this.
It's a roll-up phone, damn it. Let's take a break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Squarespace.com. Faster and easier than ever to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. If you haven't tried Squarespace 6, go try it out right now. Even if you're a current Squarespace user that's still on the Squarespace 5 system, go to Squarespace 6. It's night and day, so much better, so much. They were already good, and the few annoyances that I had are almost entirely wiped away. It's drag and drop. It's easy to see where you're going to edit stuff, and the technology behind it is impressive. They're able to take those beautiful templates. They've got great new templates that they've added to gallery, and they resize them so they make sense on whatever size device somebody's looking at your website at. So if you've got somebody looking at it on a phone, somebody looking at it on a big 34-inch monitor, your site's going to make sense in both cases because they resize your images, they adapt the templates, they have mobile responsive designs. But you don't have to take our word for it. Go try it out. You can import your old blog into Squarespace.com. You don't need to give them a credit card or anything. And then you can try it out and see if you like it. If you do, remember this offer code, TNT11. No credit card needed. Try it out. If you decide to purchase it, use the offer code TNT11 and get 10% off your first purchase on new Squarespace accounts, including monthly and annual plans. You can get 10% off the entire year if you pay all at once. And with the annual plan, you get a free domain registration. That's Squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT11. Go do it. Show Squarespace that you support Tech News Today and maybe get a really awesome looking website out of it. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. So, Iyaz, there's a Staples right down the street from me here. When will I be able to go down there and get some 3D printing done?
I don't know yet, but I know if Belgium was down the street, you might have a better chance in Q1 of 2013.
I moved to the wrong city.
That's your problem. You're actually in the wrong country. Staples is bringing 3D printing to some of its stores. The new service is called Staples Easy 3D. It's going to let customers upload designs to the Staples website. Then you pick up the printouts, or you have them shipped. Staples is using 3D printers by MCore. Now, MCore's hook is that they say that they have photorealistic printing. And in a demo video, they show off a printout of a human head, which is not as creepy as it sounds, a skull, and a printout of a map, complete with like topographic elements. It's really kind of neat looking.
Last poor York.
The first launches will be in Belgium and Netherlands in the first quarter of 2013. It's going to be rolled out to other countries afterwards. Tom, I know you're way into 3D printers. Is this move by Staples going to bring 3D printing more mainstream? I know that there are stores that do this already, but this is a chain.
Yeah, I think it will. Like you say, there's stores opening already. There's stores in New York. There's actually stores down here in Southern California that are doing this. But they're boutique stores. And so something like Staples is going to expose 3D printing to people who might not know it exists yet, or might not know that it's something attainable, even though it absolutely is. So somebody going in to buy some office supplies or some paper or a chair sees this thing and it spreads the word. I'm curious how many people will need to take advantage of it, how profitable it's going to be for Staples. But I'm excited to see 3D printing expand because I feel like this is one of the most interesting areas in technology that's developing right now.
I think this is actually a great move by Staples because, Tom, as you mentioned, it's like, well, how many people are really going to need to use a 3D printer regularly? That's exactly why Kinko's was so popular, with people printing out variety of sizes and sheets of stuff and faxing things. It's like, and people still do that at Kinko's, but a lot of that stuff has ended up being something that you can just do from home because now our computers do a lot of this for us, and you don't really need to go to a place where they offer these services that are too expensive to have in your own house. I think for 3D printers, yes, if you know about 3D printing and you're really, really into it, there are 3D printers that are available to you, but it's still really, really new. I don't think a lot of people are going to go out and get a 3D printer for Christmas this year, but knowing that it's at Staples once in a while, now you're going to Staples before you're going anywhere else. And again, that's a big chain. Most people have a Staples, well, at least in the United States, that's not too far away from where they live. So I think this seems really, really smart.
Darren, what's your opinion of Staples going into the 3D printing business? I mean, Staples got office supplies, and now if you want to print out, I don't know, a little action figure yourself, you'll be able to do that soon.
Oh, really cool. I mean, I'm also really excited for the technology, just the way that they're explaining how this particular 3D printer that they're going to be rolling out. What is it called? The Euro model iris printers. And how they do it with like layers of paper. Sounds pretty cool because you get something that's like almost wooden like, where you can drill it, tap it, screw it. It's pretty cool.
Tap it up, flip it, rub it down.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I think.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Redbox Instant. I was passing by a 7-Eleven this morning and I saw the big old Redbox sitting out front, but we may not need to use that for much longer, right, Sarah?
Yeah, that's right. Redbox Instant by Verizon. That's the full name of the
catchy.
Isn't it catchy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible name, but hey, I guess everybody wants their name in it somehow, so that's what they came to. And there's Instant in it too, so that sounds really good. As I mentioned in the news views, it's not public yet. This is a private beta that's being tested. However, a descriptive help section related to the beta, including screenshots of at least what the beta looks like at this point, is publicly available on the web. And after a little bit of digging, GigaOM not only found it, but it parsed it and got some interesting information out of this. Now, important to know that something's in private beta, anything could change. But as we know it now, here's what the terms seem to be. Subscriptions would start at $6 per month. This would be unlimited access to the subscription video catalog. Catalog, at least at first, is expected to be smaller than Netflix's, but would include some new releases, at least some of the same interesting movies, not the stuff that you go, that's old and crappy, that you also see on Netflix. An $8 a month membership would add on to the unlimited access subscription 4 Redbox credits to the streaming package that can be redeemed for Redbox DVD rentals. So Tom, that visit to 7-Eleven could actually still come in handy. Users could reserve their DVDs from the Instant website, from mobile apps. Credits would expire at the end of the month, though, so your incentive would really be you got to use those DVDs. You can't just pile them up and then have 12 credits when you feel like watching a bunch of DVDs. Redbox Instant will also offer VOD rentals and sales of newer titles starting as low as 99 cents. Probably not the best movies that you want to see are going to be at that price, but would be downloaded to some devices for offline access. Now, beta testers are at least being told right now they won't be able to access the DVDs, including in their subscriptions, at some kiosks until December 17th. So this at least still sounds like the beta program is moving right along. And if you're saying, well, hold on, if Verizon's included, is it just for Verizon customers? I'm not a Verizon customer. No, you don't have to be a Verizon customer in order to take advantage of this. But there are some restrictions. It will be available on the web. So you could access Redbox Instant by Verizon via the web, via Android and iOS apps, via the Xbox 360, and via some Samsung TVs and Blu-ray players. Customers would be able to register up to 5 devices to access the service. So no Roku, at least not at the beginning. Certainly no Apple TV. Iyaz, does this seem limiting to you, or are you like, hey, I could use this?
I think for a competitor to Netflix, this is a pretty smart plan if this thing becomes the official one. $6 is lower cost. They have a smaller selection, so you're not getting the same crazy selection you get at Netflix, where you get a ton of things. It's enough that you would be interested in starting it. The thing that I find limiting is the 5 device limitation. I know Netflix used to have that a long time ago. They bumped that up, I think, up to 50 because it was on every device. I'm assuming that if Redbox Instant takes off, it'll be available on a lot more devices, and you'll have it on lots of different ones. They'll have to up that eventually. But it's definitely an intriguing model. I mean, it's adding the subscription with VOD. It's kind of like Amazon's deal, actually, if you had Prime, if that was separated out. But I just want to see some good competition in this field because I want to see something either make Netflix turn up their game or have somebody else to have a better system. But this thing seems pretty interesting to me.
Well, it's all about the selection, though, right? I mean, the problem with Netflix isn't the price or the service; it's the selection. And I don't see any guarantee that Verizon's going to have a better selection here. Maybe they will. This really looks to me like a beta test. Like they're trying. Like, what happens if we have the price point a little bit lower than Netflix? What happens if we limit authorization of devices to 5, which Netflix terms allow them to do, but they don't really seem to do it in practice. So I'm curious to see what they end up coming out with when they decide to go public, based on what they find out from this private beta.
Yeah, and it'll be also interesting to see if Netflix responds based on the finding from this beta. If, like you said, Netflix actually starts enforcing their policies.
All right, let's finish up with Andrew Auernheimer, a.k.a. Weave's opinion column up on Wired right now. He argues against disclosing security holes. Now, if Weave sounds familiar, he's the guy he's one of the 2 guys who were prosecuted for disclosing a vulnerability on AT&T's website that had 10,000 email addresses that they had access. That's what they got prosecuted for. They are found guilty of computer intrusion. He is going to appeal. His sentencing doesn't happen until February, though. In his opinion column, he cites researcher Dan Guido's reverse engineering of mass exploit tools as a reason why he doesn't think people should disclose vulnerabilities to anyone they don't trust. Here's what Guido found. None of the exploits used for mass exploitation, things like Zeus, etc., were developed by malware authors. Instead, all of the exploits came from advanced persistent threats, an industry term that usually means nation states, almost always, or from white hat disclosures. And in fact, white hat disclosures accounted for 100% of the logic flaws used for exploitation. And apparently, he says criminals, according to Guido, actually prefer white hat code because it's more reliable than code provided from underground sources. So Andrew's arguing, or Weave is arguing, for the anti-sec principle. This is not maybe the anti-sec you've heard of in relation to lulzsec. This is an older movement that says, quote, an exploit is a powerful weapon that should only be disclosed to an individual whom you know through personal experience will act in the interest of social justice. Darren, I mean, you're host of Hack 5. You're deep into all this stuff. I know you know about anti-sec. What do you think about Andrew's opinion? Because it goes against the general trend has been more disclosure is better.
Yeah, when I actually met Andrew at Hackerspace in San Francisco about I don't know, almost a year ago now, and interesting character. And I was really kind of like, normally it's the discussion amongst the computer security professionals. It's like between full and responsible, and there's varying reasons between that. A lot of it having to do with money or almost like a religious almost belief. The idea there being that full is just like, hey, let's put it out as soon as, I develop an exploit. I'm going to put it out into the ether as soon as I've got it compiled, so that everyone can start using it and everybody can start patching against it and fixing it and making, the stuff better. Whereas a responsible disclosure is usually like, okay, I've developed this. Let me talk to the vendor first. Say like I find a hole in Windows, I would go to Microsoft and it would say, hey, Microsoft, you might want to fix this. And maybe they'd give me a bucket of cash and then they'd fix it. And then eventually I could speak about it at a conference after it's been fixed or something like that. The whole idea of anti-sec is the complete opposite of any disclosure. It's like, hey, in their mind, it's all about like an intellectual exercise of developing an exploit and maybe even sharing amongst their small community of friends that they could trust to, peer review that kind of code and be interested in that. And it makes sense that what you mentioned about Guido's research from Zeus and those other kind of large scale attack platforms, that they would use a lot of the white hat code. And because the white hat code is what's come out of that kind of full disclosure, the kinds of things that you can find if you just go over to Millworm or Security Focus or Packet Storm, it's like just grab whatever the latest exploit is, plug it into your, a lot of whatever your framework of choice is and run it and you're off to the races. So it's interesting to see anti-sec getting some press here because traditionally it doesn't.
The only weakness I can see some people may have with this argument is that vendors should be told, and he goes through that part of it and how vendors often fall down because vendors are trying to satisfy stockholders, not consumers, and so sometimes the cost-benefit analysis of fixing an exploit doesn't work out. So they either don't fix it properly or they don't fix it at all.
Or actually what's worse, and I can totally see this as an argument for anti-sec, what's worse is when you go to the vendor and you say, hey, here's your hole, and they go, okay, great, we're going to send you to jail.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sarah, Iyaz, do either of you as consumers feel like this might be a bad policy that you would or would not feel safer? Or is it a good policy?
I mean, the idea of full disclosure always seemed crazy to me, that you just tell everybody, but that's basically like how open source works, right? You just go say, look, this is everything we know. It's out there, and you have this massive community to take care of it versus just quietly keeping things to yourself, because if you discover it, there's a chance somebody else discovered it. So you might as well explain to the world, look, this exploit's out there. So the idea of keeping it quiet and trying to get it solved and everything, I mean, that's admirable, but I see the benefits to both sides of this.
Yeah,
I think full disclosure. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Darren.
I was just going to say full disclosure happens all the time. And like you said, open source software, it's like, as a developer, it may not be that it opens up a remote exploit or something equally as nefarious, but, usually you're using a system like BugTrack or something like that to manage all those flaws you find. And again, that's the kind of transparency that you get with open source.
Yeah, there's a difference between bug tracking and exploit fixing that is very important to this sort of debate. But it is time now to fire up the randomizer.
Randomizer.
I am scared and excited about this story on Engadget. Kuratus, the 13-foot mech that allows you to essentially become Ripley from Alien. Did you guys take a look at this?
This is so hot.
Only $1,353,000 US.
Yeah, in our doc, the line was broken up. I saw it cost $1.35. That says it's $1.35 million. I was excited when it was $1.35. I don't have $1.35 million. This looks a bit more like Megatron than it does
Where are you
Ripley.
going to put this thing? Who's got an airplane hangar in their backyard?
If you got $1 million to blow on this, I think you could somehow manage to get a building for it.
You could build a little shed.
With your next to your $25,000 4K TV. Come on. Where else would you put it?
It's Sudobashi Heavy Industries that's doing this. Sarah, you going to pick one up?
Yeah, sure. I'm almost up to that much, just in spare change. In another 6 months or so, I think I'll be able to buy one of these guys and not dent the wallet too much. Yeah, I don't know. This is silly.
It's a Kinect-based movement interface, though, with a touchscreen. Like this is some consumer parts in here. It's pretty crazy they were able to make this work.
I mean, listen, anybody who can buy this is going to have the coolest party. That's for sure. So if you're going to, please invite us. Otherwise, I don't really expect to see one anytime soon.
It's got a launcher that won't hurt anyone. It says, yes.
Yeah, it's less about being able to pick one up and more about like they were able to put this together. That's pretty crazy. Twin Gatling.
I think it's cute. Looks like a Tachikoma.
Also looks bigger than 13 feet. I don't know.
Well, you're short.
Well, I suppose so. Tom's like, what? It's barely taller than me.
Jason
right on it.
Get an eye to eye.
What? You're not so tough.
All right, let's take a break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Audible.com. I made good use of Audible yesterday on my way to the airport, listening to 2312 by Kim Stanley Robinson. It'll help you pass the time while driving, while cleaning, while doing chores. Audible is the leading provider of audiobooks with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. Listeners of Audible get a free, or listeners of Tech News Today get a free Audible audiobook to give you a chance to try out their service. One audiobook you might want to consider is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. The movie's coming out soon, and it's a great read. You can get an unabridged version of it. Go check it out, audiblepodcast.com/TNT, and get a free audiobook. If you're like, hey, I already read The Hobbit, there's plenty of books out there to choose from. There's all kinds of science fiction and fantasy, all kinds of nonfiction stuff. I think there's some really, really good stuff like In the Plex and things about the computer industry and computer history. So just go get a free book, will you already? audiblepodcast.com/TNT. That's the URL to remember. And if you're already an Audible subscriber, give a friend that URL. Let them know, hey, you can get a free audiobook like I do. audiblepodcast.com/TNT. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. I believe that is the calendar looming.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
it is.
I heard the sound, Tom. You must be right on track. The Nintendo Wii U launched in Europe today. Did you get one? Are you going to? Let us know if you enjoy it over the weekend. Tomorrow is Canadian National Day of Podcasting. This is the sort of thing that Tom Merritt knows all about, even though he's not Canadian. It's
Dave,
just,
the psychologist,
this is so
is the one who sent the email to us. The Canadian National Day of Podcasting is put on by some cool folks who used to put on podcasters across borders. And it's encouraging people to do a podcast either that they already do or maybe one they haven't done in a long time. Maybe one of their podcasts kind of fell out of practice. So it's just get out there and podcast.
Get out there and make a show. It's not that hard. The International Telecommunications Union in Dubai does start on Monday the 3rd, runs through the entire week. We will probably have updates for you depending on what happens.
Let's take a look at what's incoming.
Incoming message.
I was trying to remember when we were having the discussion about music royalties, what the situation was for terrestrial radio when they stream music online. And we got a guy who manages some radio stations to tell us what the answer is. Take it away, Guy.
Hey, this is Alex Hackney from Ironton, Ohio. I wanted to let you know that I am an IT manager for a set of radio stations in the Huntington, West Virginia market. And we do stream all of our radio stations, and we do pay royalties. Just like the other people do. We have to account for every single song, who was listening at the time of the song. We pay every single song listened that goes out over the stream. So if 10 people are listening when we play a song, we pay for those 10 people to hear that song. It's really, really cumbersome for everybody. But the hope is that if they can even out, like you guys said, if they can even out the way the royalties are paid, maybe it'll be better for everyone else. So, but just wanted to chime in and let you know how we do it. Thank you. Love the show.
Hey, thanks, Alex. That's great. I love it when people who actually know, I work with this, I do this, I know the answer. Give us a call. 260-TNT show is the phone number if you're ever one of those people. Appreciate the information. Let's finish off with an email about the motherboard story, Iyaz.
Yeah, we got a couple emails, actually a lot of emails about the soldered-on Intel chips that are going to be coming out soon. Here's like a representative one from Mike in Kalamazoo. He says, you discussed the possibility that the next generation of CPUs from Intel may be soldered to the motherboard and dismissed people swapping processors as a relic of the past. What about when you're building a PC for the first time? Manufacturers are not going to want to make a SKU for every possible CPU/motherboard combination, so you'll have a limited set of motherboard CPU combinations to choose from. He then goes on to explain what parts he was looking for in a motherboard. He says, I was looking for a cheap upgrade by recycling parts and moving on to a generation of hardware, but soon we may be stuck with AMD if we want flexibility in upgrades or system building. And AMD has stopped fighting for top spot against Intel, choosing to focus on APUs that are better suited for cheap PCs. So Mike is concerned that we're not going to have selection. Darren, did you hear about the story of Intel's next chips being soldered onto motherboards?
Yeah, and it's not surprising because when you do things like that, when you actually get rid of the, I forget the proper term for this, but basically the mechanism that bridges those two, it is going to get a lot less expensive. Intel already does chipsets. They already do motherboards. I would prefer to see having like both options. Like, hey, if you want to get like a cheaper one that's got like an Intel motherboard chipsets, their CPU and all of that stuff as a soldered on option, that would be cool because that might, really drive prices down. But at the same time, I also don't hold on to hope that things will always be the way that they have been since the beginning of computing, where you could go around and buy all the parts and assemble them. As much as I love that, and that's near and dear to my heart, I try to think about like where we're going to be in 50 years from today. And just with the miniaturization of things, I don't see it happening, sadly.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart.
Breaks your ability to easily upgrade, too. Well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Darren Kitchen, what's happening over there at Hack 5?
Well, go over to Hack 5 and tune into our first episode of ThreatWire. It's a new show that we launched on the new YouTube channel Tech Feed with Revision 3/Discovery. And it's really exciting because we're taking on that kind of like security and privacy stuff for everybody. If you've ever tuned into Hack 5 and you're like, whoa, this is way over my head, this is the kind of stuff where we get to talk about the things we're passionate about as far as things threatening our internet. You had mentioned the conference in Dubai, and we've got an episode that just came out last night all about that. So go ahead and tune in, find out about the United Nations and the ITU and what it means to the internet.
All right. That's it for Tech News Today. Don't forget to submit stories that you would like us to cover. If you're like, wait a minute, you guys didn't talk about iTunes 11. We did talk about it yesterday. There were people were wanting it on subreddit, but it wasn't overwhelming. We look at that stuff when we pick our stories each and every day. So go to technewstoday.reddit.com and cast your vote for the stories you would like to hear. It's not an entire democracy, but we definitely pay attention to it when we make up our lineups each day. Also, if you liked a particular moment at any point during the week or any time during the entire year, let us know about it at twit.tv/bestof. That goes just for TNT and nobody else. No, it goes for every show on the Twit network. Go to twit.tv/bestof. We're going to make some best of episodes for the end of the year. That is it. You can find us at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call and leave us a voicemail. As I mentioned, 260-TNT-SHOW is the phone number. We'll be back on Monday with an all-new show. I'll be back in Petaluma, and Will Harris will be on the line. Talk to you then.